So a lot of times what I do is I just randomly play a first note, and if it sounds terrible, I either go up or I go down, and I quickly find a right note. It's only ever one fret away. So watch what's going to happen here. All right, so watch this. That's a right note. Sounds good to me. Now let's find another right. Hey everybody, Gary here with Guitar Tricks, and in this video we're going to go over how to find the right key, the right scale, the right notes when you're improvising over a jam track, you're just playing along to songs on the radio or your favorite album. It's great to be self-sufficient and rely on your ear and your music theory knowledge instead of needing someone to tell you exactly what notes to play and what scale and what key. So I'm going to go over a few methods that I use to determine those things when I'm listening to music. So Guitar Tricks just sent me a library of jam tracks in rock style and blues style. I'm just going to randomly click on a couple and show you how I would determine which key, which scale, which notes to play. All right, before we get into the lesson, please go ahead and click subscribe so that you get all the latest and greatest content from Guitar Tricks. And if you want to be notified of any new lesson, be sure to click the bell. All right, here we go. So I've got a jam track here. I haven't listened to it yet. I'm gonna press play and I'm gonna figure out how to solo over it. And I'm gonna talk you through my process and then ask you to do the same thing using a different jam track. Here we go. All right, so what I'm gonna try to find is the note that sounds most like home. So I'm gonna hum the riff. Here we go. Da, 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 da. This is the note that sounds like home. Da. So I'm gonna pause it right there. There's that note. Da. Right? So, you know, you might have to fiddle around for a moment. There it is. Da. But you want to try to match that sound. Now, you don't have to sing it, but singing it always helps build the connection between your inner ear and your fingers. So the more you sing in your practice sessions, the better. So trying to hum that note and the riff. Da, 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 da. But that's the fundamental note. Da. So let's see, is it A minor or A major? Ba, ba, da, 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 da. Well, let's see, if we play the A minor scale, let's say A minor pentatonic. Versus A major. A major doesn't really work. A minor sounds better. So that's the other thing to determine. Is it major, is it minor, right? Now, if you knew a little bit of music theory, you'd know that if we go from the root to the minor seventh, which is down 2 frets from the root, that indicates some sort of minor scale. Because in the major scale, the 7th scale degree is 1 fret below the root. So that's just kind of a little music theory knowledge thing that could help you determine that. So we know we're in some sort of A minor. Now, even if the chord changes, we can stick with the A minor scale in most situations. Usually, within a song, all the chord changes are still within the scale and the key of the song. That's a misconception that a lot of people have. So if it changes chords, we can stick with A minor or A minor pentatonic. If we want to be more sophisticated, we can take the next step to figure out what the other chords are, and we can hit chord tones and kind of anticipate those chord changes. But just to be able to survive and make cool riffs, start first by just determining the key and not worrying about all the chord changes. So I'm going to press play again, and I'm going to be jamming on both A pentatonic and A minor. Here we go. Right, so I'm just playing A minor pentatonic. Chord change, still gonna play A minor. minor. Now, like I said, if we want to get more sophisticated, we could try to figure out what was that chord change. So what I'm going to do is try to hum it and then figure out what that chord change was. Here we go. There it is. So it was basically the same riff, but over a new root note. So where we had and then and then there it is. So it went from an A to an E. So I could target the E and the note 2 frets below it, or an octave higher. When it goes to that chord, just to outline the riff more. We might also want to try playing on E minor pentatonic, just to see if that works now that we determined that's an E, and it's the same thing, E minor, just like A minor there. But we could, like I said, stick with A minor because the song is in A minor. So let's see what happens when we outline the notes in that E and we also try E minor pentatonic. Here we go. Yeah, E minor pentatonic sounds great. I'm gonna go to A minor pentatonic. The song went back to A minor, so it worked. Here's the chord change. So that was E minor pentatonic. Now I'm going to try. That was A minor pentatonic. So we can play both of those scales and it's going to work. I can also play E minor scale. Back to A minor. So the key there was first determining the key. So the song is in A minor, but in a way it's kind of modal because when it goes to the E, it goes to the E for a long time, and the E starts to feel like the home note. Maybe not the first time, but it stays there for a while. So what you could do is switch key centers from A minor to E minor, but you don't have to. You can just stick with A minor. So that was an example of kind of a riff-based song that has a shifting key center. Right? So you can use the same method of determining the root note, the A, on the first chord and do that again on that second chord. So this was just kind of a 2-chord song. Being it's a jam track, whoever created it probably thought, you know, let's shift from one to the other. Now, what I didn't tell you is that it says key of A on there. Right? So a lot of jam tracks you see are going to say that. But I challenge you to just create a playlist and put it on random, or just have autoplay on so that you don't know and you have to figure it out on your own. So I'm going to put on another jam track and I want you to try to figure out what key it is by using the same method. Try to determine the note that is the root of the key, the note that feels the most like home. Try to hum it and then try to play it, and there's your root note. All right, here we go. Very similar to the other riff. All right, try to hum that note. Which note? You're hearing 2 notes. One of them is the more powerful one. It was the one that started the riff and ended the riff. Dun, dun, ba, dun, ba, dun, 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 ba, dun, ba, dun, 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 ba, dun, ba, dun, dun. That note. Dun, burr. All right, did you find it? La 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 la. Let's try to find that note. Do I want to play it there? Maybe not. What note is that? E. E, la la la, E. Here's 3 E's. Open E, 12th fret E on the E string, E on the A string. First scales that you should learn are the ones that have the root notes on the low E and the A string, right? So now that we know it's E, and just again with that minor 7th. So we're gonna assume E minor, right? Rock, E minor, almost kind of Black Sabbath influence. So there we go. We know E minor pentatonic is going to work. We can try E Dorian, E minor. Those kind of basic derivatives of E minor are going to work over that. Now again, we might have some chord changes, but we can stick with E minor. So let's just start jamming in E minor and see what happens. I'm going to go back to the beginning. See, all these chord changes, doesn't matter. Just E minor. It's still all in E minor. The song's in E minor. So those are pretty simple, right? The main point there is try to find the home note. Don't worry about all the chord changes. 99% of the time you can stick with the same scale unless there's some modulation to another key. Every scale, every key has 7 chords, and usually all the chords in the song are in that key, so that means you can play all the notes in that key and it's fine. Your ear will also naturally gravitate to chord tones. You've been listening to music your entire life preparing for the instrument you're now learning to play. So you'll naturally gravitate to some of those chord tones, which are all found within the scale, within that home scale. All right, here's another method. So if you know all your scale shapes, you could only ever be 1 fret away from a good note, a note that in standard practice works, that's within the scale. You can never be more than 1 note away. So a lot of times what I do is I just randomly play a first note, and if it sounds terrible, I either go up or I go down, and I quickly find a right note. It's only ever 1 fret away. So watch what's gonna happen here. All right, so watch this. That's a right note, sounds good to me. Now let's find another right. All right, so what I did there, I just followed my ear. I knew all of that just sounded good. So now, if I know my scale shapes, I'm going to figure out what scale shapes could they possibly be that have this. So right there, I found the scale shape that has this. And then following back the scale shape, I found my root note, G. So I went. And then if I know this one, I know that one. Right, because there's 5 patterns that follow each other. And on the Guitar Tricks website, you can kind of use this scale finder to see the consecutive patterns. So the method there is find a string of notes in an area that work, and then identify which pattern that grouping of notes is a part of, and follow it back to the home note within that pattern. And then if you know that pattern and you know your other patterns, you know the order of patterns, then you can work your way all over the neck. So let me just demonstrate again using this track. So I started here. My way down, and then I know, using the humming method again, which note sounds the most like home. It's usually the first note. There it is. Da, G. The first chord is usually the home chord, and if I hum G throughout, it's gonna sound good. Here comes the G again, the first chord. What I did to work my way around, like I said, I've studied the consecutive patterns. So if I know this pattern, and that's pentatonic, that's shape 4 of the pentatonic. I know then from there, I have that pentatonic, and then I know from there, I have shape 1. Shape 2. Right? Or if I'm thinking major, not just pentatonic, but the full diatonic scale, which has 7 notes, and then from there, and then from there, and then from there. So it's worth studying your patterns, and then, like I said, once you visualize, oh, that's the pattern I'm in, all the notes in that pattern work, then you just work your way up and down the fretboard. Now, if we want to know chord tones, we can try to figure out the chord progression. So the first way to do that is to be able to sing the root notes of the chord progression and find them on the guitar. So let's find some of the other chords. Da-da. Da, 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 hum. Da. I'm listening for the bass. Da, da, da. Try to hum along. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. So I know the first one's G. Boom, boom. Now I need boom, boom, boom. So we got G, G, B, B, boom. Then we go to E, boom, boom. Then C. So G, G, B, B, E, E, C, C. So that's our chord progression. Now, this is where music theory knowledge comes into play. We can give each one of those chords a number. 1, 3, 6, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 5, 4. Then, using your music theory, you know that 1, 4, and 5 are always major, 2, 3, and 6 are always minor. 1, 3 minor, 6 minor, 4 major. Let's test ourselves, see if it works. Sounds good. So with that in mind, if if I want to get really crafty during my solo, if I figure out the chord progression, I can target and anticipate chords. Now, you've been practiced, like I said earlier, you've been training your whole life by listening to music that you will naturally gravitate to chord tones. Like whenever a singer makes up a melody over a chord progression, they're generally gravitating to chord tones. So you could do the same thing, but knowing them in advance can help you target them in advance instead of kind of discovering them on the spot. So for instance, I might start on G and then land on the 3. 1, 2, 3. So in other words, right? And then it goes to 6. So then I might do something like, so I might go like, right? Because that's the root of the 6th chord. And then 4. So I might do something like, so there I kind of connected the root notes, which is kind of like chord tone soloing, right? So let me demonstrate that with the track. All right, here we go. So I'm going to try to hit all the root notes. 1, 2, 3. So the second time around, I tried to hit chord tones, but not necessarily the root, and I was really just using my ear. The thing is, if you really hear the chord progression and you're not just mindlessly, in your own world, which a lot of guitar players tend to do, you will allow your ear to try to connect with those chord tones. So I guess the main point here is trust your ear to find the chord tones, but use your ear to really listen to the chord progression. And the best way to figure out the chord progression is to hum the bass note, the root note. Try to hear the chord progression and find the bass line to that chord progression. So that's what we did. We went boom, 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 boom. Then you're gonna try to give them a number, 1, 3, 6, 4. And if that is really confusing to you, check out the video on the Nashville number system, and we'll link to that above. Then, if you determine the numbers, usually 1, 4, 5 major, 2, 3, 6 minor, 7 diminished, which is more unusual, and then you can try those as your first bet, and if anything is weird, then you adjust accordingly. But usually you could rely on that, especially in popular music. All right, everybody, so I hope that gave you some insight into how to figure out the key of a song and what scale to use to improvise in that song, and then to go a step further and figure out the chord progression as well. So what I would recommend you do is just put on a playlist of your favorite songs and try to identify what note is home, because that home tone is the key of the song. So like, for instance, if you determine this note is home, that note is G sharp, you're probably either in G sharp major or G sharp minor. Then figure out, am I in minor or major? And you could do that by playing a minor scale or a minor pentatonic scale, and then a major scale or a major pentatonic, or a major chord and a minor chord, and seeing which sounds more correct. So that's kind of step one. Then if you want to go a step further, repeat that process with all the chords to determine the chord progression. But again, usually the entire chord progression is within a key, so you don't have to go any step further to just improvise. If it's in G sharp, there might be all sorts of chords, but you can just play that G sharp minor or major scale without worrying about all the other chords. Your ear will naturally gravitate to the chord tones. Now, if you know all your scale shapes, the 5 shapes or the cage system or whatever, and you just start improvising freely, don't be afraid, because like I said, you're never more than a half step away from a quote unquote right note that's within the home scale. And then if you find a little melodic idea that you like, try to see what pattern in the caged or the 5-shape system that is a part of. And if you determine, okay, that's this shape, then you know, all right, if I'm in, let's say, the G shape of caged, then right before that is the E shape, and then the C shape, and then the D shape, right? And so, or if you're thinking the 5 shapes by numbers, if I'm in shape 3, then the 2, then the 1, and then the 4 and the 5. So that's how you can put together your theory knowledge and your scale practice with real world improvising. All right, everybody, hope that was helpful. If you want to learn more about this stuff, if you want to access hundreds of jam tracks, head over to guitartricks.com, and I will see you guys in the next lesson. Take care.